I remember when I entered inside my household, I saw that there was someone in the corner of the room, but I couldn't see who it was because the lights were off. And then out of nowhere, when I turned on the light, I saw it was my ex-girlfriend waiting for me to come to my own house. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another really embarrassing, but I gotta say, insane story. Now, this story all starts off back when I was in high school in grade 11. Now, in high school, I remember in grade 11 year specifically, I had a girlfriend for a couple months that I was dating. Now, this girl, I'm not gonna lie to you, she was really good to me, and I gotta say, she was one of the best girls I've probably ever dated, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, one thing about her was that she was very, very over the top with everything. Because I remember she would always like want to be there with me no matter where I went. And for example, if I wanted to just basically hang out with the boys and have a good time, she would always just be there. It got to the point where, I'm gonna be honest, I had no privacy whatsoever. And don't get me wrong, as much as I enjoy the Devil's Tango more than the next guy, I gotta say, I really just couldn't handle her anymore. So I remember what I decided to do was basically one time in school, I was just sitting down with all my friends and they were all telling me like, you know, if I really didn't want to be with this girl anymore and stuff, just break up with her, because if you keep dating her, the longer it lasts, the more painful it's gonna be. And they were right, and there was no way I could disagree with what they were saying. So I remember I decided that night I would invite her over, do one last Devil's Tango, and break up with her. I remember after school came around and I ended up texting my girlfriend that was at the time to basically, you know, meet up with me at my place. She ended up texting me back saying, oh, like, yeah, sure, I was gonna show up anyway, but I'll be there soon. And I ended up realizing that I was more excited to break up with her than ever. Later that night, I remember I was just in my room hanging out and I was playing Xbox with the boys and stuff, and then out of nowhere, I ended up getting a text message. I got a text message from my girlfriend saying that she was at my door, and I ended up telling the boys, all right, boys, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna break up with her. I'll be back in like maybe like half an hour to like 30 minutes. All right, you got this, bro. Don't back down, is what one of them said. And then afterwards, I ended up turning off my Xbox and I went upstairs and let her in. When I let her in, she automatically just walked in and just went straight to my bedroom without even saying hi to me. I automatically knew why she did that, because throughout our relationship, she would usually do this just to come straight into my room and do the Devil's Tango. And honestly, that's exactly what happened. I went straight into my room. One thing led to another. We did it. And well, yeah, we did the Devil's Tango. But right afterwards, after that was all over, I remember I ended up basically laying down beside her and I looked at her saying, hey, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I wanted to talk to you about something. Yeah, anything for you, babe? What's up? I'm gonna be honest. I don't think this is gonna work out. You know, like, I just don't feel like me and you are compatible and maybe we should just break up. You want to break up with me? Why? I didn't do anything to you, Bubba. I love you. I care about you so much. No, I get that, but I just don't think it's good for us to be together. Just, you know, maybe just accept it and move on, you know? At that moment, she got up and she started going on her hands and knees and begging for me not to break up with her. I told her that I shouldn't back down and I should just agree upon this and we should just move on. And that's when she got up and said, Bubba, I don't know if I can think about anyone else but you, in a really creepy way. Now, when she said this, I was obviously creeped out, but at the same time, I thought she was just doing it because we were in the moment of a really intense moment, to be exact. And I just said, you know what? Like, you gotta go. And then I remember I went upstairs and I let her out of my house. After she left my place, I'm not gonna lie, I went straight back onto my Xbox. I told the boys exactly what happened, other than me doing the Devil's Tango with her. And they all cheered and said, good stuff, Bubba. Welcome to the single club. You know, all the basic stuff that most guys would say to each other after one breaks up with another. But little did I know, that was the start of the most insane thing ever, because what ends up happening next, I gotta say, blew my mind. Because the next day when I went to school, I remember I tried my best to basically avoid her as much as possible because I didn't want to see my ex-girlfriend at all. One thing was for sure, while I was trying to avoid her, she was trying to get closer to me. And I remember there was moments where she would always try to talk to me and stuff, but me, I always tried to walk away from her. It got to the point where she really just kept trying to get near me, and it got to moments where even like when I was walking down the hallway, for example, she would be in the corner just staring at me. Not even walking up to me, nothing. Just staring at me with her big eyes. At that moment, I remember I was terrified, and honestly, I kind of got the chills from it. But later on in my mind, I thought, you know what? Maybe she just needs time to get over me. And boy, was I wrong, because what ends up happening afterwards really just creeped me out. Because I remember I was at home after school that day, and I was just on my computer just playing some games. And then out of nowhere, I ended up getting a phone call from a no-caller ID on my phone. Now, no-caller ID, if you guys don't know what that is, basically it's when people start calling you, but it doesn't say like what the number is or who the contact that is calling you is. And me, I remember when I saw this, I thought, you know what? Maybe it's like one of my friends trying to play a prank on me. So I answered it, and instantly I just hear my ex-girlfriend's voice going, can I see you? I really need to see you right now. At that moment, I didn't even say a word back. I just hung up. I just hung up on her instantly because I did not want to talk to her. Like, that's the golden rule with me. Once I break up with you, like, I am gone. Like, you will not see me again. I vanish. You know what I mean? For her, she just didn't understand that. She kept basically calling back afterwards over and over with this no caller ID because I did block her number after me and her broke up. And me, I just got really annoyed. It got to the point where I actually fully shut off my phone and just hopped on Xbox to tell the boys what was happening. The boys thought the same thing I did when I saw her, like, you know, staring at me in the hallways. They thought it would just take time for her to move on. And that's what I thought as well. But things got even worse afterwards. Because I remember in grade 11 at this time, I remember I worked at a restaurant. And basically, I was just working, doing my own thing. And I was actually a cook in the back, working as a line cook. And I remember out of nowhere, one of the waitresses ended up coming to the kitchen saying, "Hey, Bubba, you got a phone call? I'm not sure who it is, but apparently they're asking for you." At that moment, I thought it was maybe my mom or my dad, you know, trying to inform me of something, because I usually leave my phone in the locker to make sure, you know, I don't get distracted from work. So I walked up to the phone, I ended up grabbing it, and I ended up putting it up to my ear, and I said, "Hello, like, who is it?" "Baba, it's me. I really miss you. I really need to talk to you. Can you see me tonight? I really miss your eggplant." "What?" is what I said afterwards, and I instantly hung up. I remember the waitress ended up looking at me saying, "Are you okay, Baba?" "Yeah, no, I'm good. If that person calls back, just don't tell me about it." And I went back to the kitchen and I started working. So at this point, from following me around school to calling me with no caller ID and then calling my workplace, obviously things were getting really suspicious. But I think there's one thing that she ended up doing at the end of it really freaked me out the most, because I remember 1 week goes by and this girl kept doing the same exact things that creeped me out from earlier. And usually after 1 week, you would probably think she would have moved on and not be as creepy. But no, I remember one day there was after my shift 1 week later, and I came home from work after working 8 hours. I was exhausted. I wanted to go home and not deal with anything. So I remember I ended up driving home, and when I got home, I parked my car and I realized that all the lights were off. But I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't surprised about that because, well, my parents went out for vacation for a bit to go see family, so obviously I was home alone. And then I remember when I ended up walking up to my door and unlocking it, I ended up hearing some weird noises. I didn't know where it was coming from. It was definitely not coming from outside of my house, so when I opened the door and I looked around, I ended up seeing that it was just pitch black. Obviously, coming home to total darkness is not unusual because usually you just turn on the light. And me, when I turned on the light, I am not joking, I ended up looking into the corner of the room and I saw my ex-girlfriend was sitting down just staring at me with her eyes wide open saying, "Hey, Bubba, I've been waiting for you. How long have you been in my house?" Only like, you know, like 4 hours. "You were in my house for 4 hours. What are you doing here? Get out. I want to talk to you." And I remember she started coming up to me and started like kind of like grabbing me. But me at that moment, I didn't know what to do. And I remember I ended up calling my neighbor to basically come over to make sure that this girl would leave and nothing weird would happen. So my neighbor came over and he looked at me saying, "Yo, Bubba, I have a question, bro. Like, why is she here?" "I don't know. She just broke into my house." "She broke in? I'm calling the cops." And well, one thing led to another. The cops were called and she got arrested for breaking and entering, which I mean is very illegal, and no one should break into another person's house. But at the end of it all, I remember after that moment, I'm not gonna lie to you, she never ended up contacting me again, but she still stalks my profiles once in a while. So if you're watching this video, I just want to say, that's right, I told your story. But if you guys want to make sure that you guys don't get an obsessed ex-girlfriend, just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. After catching this girl following me all around the school and even in some public places, I remember I looked at her and said, "Yo, what is it gonna take for you to stop following me? Here, give me your phone." And when she took my phone, she made it so that she always, and I mean always, gets notified where I go and has my location on 24/7. This girl was obsessed, bro. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 11 year. Now in grade 11, you guys gotta know I was a major player, okay? Like, yes, I do a lot of the Devil's Tango. But one thing was for sure was that this one girl I ended up meeting was really obsessed with me to the point where it was kind of weird. But the way I met her, honestly, was also pretty weird. Because I remember one day when I was walking down the school hallway, one of my friends ended up walking up to me. He walked up to me and said, "Yo, Bubba, listen, bro. I have a massive favor I need to ask you." Yeah, what is it? What's up, bro?" "Well, you see, I'm going on a date with this girl, but like her friend is going, and like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really need a third wheel, so can you come in and like kind of like, you know, make it like a double date?" Now, I'm gonna say this, I really don't like double dates. I feel like it makes things really awkward unless, you know, everyone's already friends. But one thing was for sure was that this guy was a good friend of mine, so I ended up saying, yeah, sure, okay, I'm down. When's the date?" He ended up writing all the details on a text message and he sent it to me. And at that moment, when I realized we were going to the theater, I already knew what I was going in for. I remember the next day comes around and that's when the date was. And I remember after school that day, he ended up walking up to me before I got into my car and said, "Yo, Bubba, Bubba, remember that date tonight, right? Because I need you there. Yeah, I'll be there. I told you I would. Okay, sweet. I'll see you. And I ended up getting inside my car, and as I was on the way there, he actually ended up sending me a photo of what this girl looks like. Now, I'm not gonna lie, as I was driving, I'm never usually on my phone, but this one time when I needed to see what this girl looked like, I'm not gonna lie, she was really, really attractive. Like, she was definitely like a 10 out of 10. But one thing I know about 10 out of 10s is that there's always something off with them. There's no girl that is a perfect 10 out of 10. But so far from what I was seeing, this girl was. And me thinking everything was gonna be okay, well, boy, was I wrong. Because once I got to the theater that night, trust me, things got really, really weird. Because I remember later that night when I pulled up to the movie theater, I ended up getting out of my car, and instantly I saw my friend and these two girls standing there just waiting for me. And as I was walking up to them, this girl ends up walking up to me saying, "Hi, like, nice to meet you. You must be my date tonight." Yeah, hi, I'm Bubba. Nice to meet you. We ended up shaking hands because obviously, like, I didn't really know her, but as I was shaking my hand with her, she ended up pulling me in and giving me a big hug, which, I mean, some girls like being like that, you know, I'm not gonna argue with it, but I will say this, it made me pretty uncomfortable. But one thing led to another. We ended up going inside the movie theater and we went to go watch a horror movie. Now, I'm gonna say this as well. I don't like horror movies. If you guys enjoy horror movies, comment down below, but me personally, I don't enjoy watching horror movies at all. Like, it is just not for me. It is not my thing. But since my friend and their date ended up basically choosing a horror movie to watch, since they were both into horror movies, me and this girl, we ended up, you know, basically joining along since it was a double date. But as we got inside the movie theater, I remember we sat down, and when the movie started, instantly at that moment, this girl that was my date ended up talking to me over and over and over again. Like, no joke, all she would do is just talk to me the whole entire movie, which if anyone knows movie theater etiquette, you know it is not a good idea to interrupt the movie while you're watching it. I remember this girl kept talking to me over and over to the point where my friend ended up texting me saying, "Yo, bro, I'm trying to watch the movie and you guys talking is actually annoying. If you guys are going to be yapping, can you at least do it outside the movie?" So I remember at that point, I showed the message to the girl, and me and her, we ended up giggling, and we actually ended up leaving the movie theater. We ended up walking outside, and we just sat down by my car, and we just started talking and stuff, because, well, that's all she was doing, really, since she was a professional yapper, apparently. And then that's when things got pretty weird, because I remember she started, like, kind of trauma dumping me and told me about her last boyfriend, how, like, she never really trusted him and stuff, since he would do weird things. And that's when I kind of understood and started relating to her, to the point where I ended up asking her out again. And boy, was this a majorly bad decision, because what ends up happening next was really, really bad. Because the next time I go and see this girl, I started really to see her true colors. Because I remember there was a time where during school, I ended up seeing her at my school hallway just hanging out. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know she went to my school until like the day I met her. But I ended up walking up to her saying, "Hey, like, what class you got next?" "Oh, I just have science." "Oh, okay, cool. I'm about to head to theater class." "Yeah, I know." "Oh, okay." At that moment, I started to realize that this girl already knew my school schedule and a lot about me that I didn't really know she knew. Like, for example, she knew the last 3 girls I dated somehow, and on top of that, she knew where I lived. How did she know where I lived? Well, I don't really know. But I remember after that little, like, short conversation with her, I ended up walking up to my friend that was on the double date with me that night, and I told him, like, "Yo, like, bro, did you say any information to her about me? Like, what did you tell this girl?" And he just straight up says, "Oh, bro, I didn't tell her anything. To be honest, I didn't meet her until I got to the theater that day as well." So obviously something was a little off here, but I didn't really think too much of it. Maybe she just did some basic research on the internet to figure out who I was and who I am as a person. But don't get me wrong, what ends up happening next made things even a lot more weirder. Because I remember later on that week, me and her would go on a couple dates here and there, but I started to notice that every time me and her were in school, she would follow me around the school as if she was like majorly obsessed with me. It was really, really weird, and she kept following me around, and it got to the point where one of the boys even pointed it out and said, "Yo, Bubba, your girlfriend keeps following us around, bro. Like, she's actually being really weird, dude. Let's just tell her, like, to buzz off." So that's what I did. I ended up walking up to her, and I said to her, "Hey, babe, listen, like, you need to, like, seriously just, like, back off a little, okay? Like, I understand you want to hang out with me and stuff, but this is not the way to do it." "Well, like, how am I supposed to know where you are and stuff? Like, I want to hang out with you again soon." "I mean, like, you could just text me like any normal person would." And at that moment, I remember she ended up grabbing my phone, and she ended up making it so that she could see my location no matter where I was. Obviously, I was super uncomfortable with this, and I remember I looked at her and told her, wait, you turned on my location for you?" "Yeah, so I can always know where you are." And at that moment, I felt really uncomfortable. It was pretty obvious at this moment that this girl was obsessed. But not only that, I remember things got a lot worse and made things really, really weird. Because not even later on that same day, I was walking towards my car to basically head home, and right away, I ended up seeing a girl leaning on my car, and it wasn't the girl that was obsessed with me, it was another girl. And I walked up to her saying, "Hey, like, why you on my car? You're Bubba, right?" Yeah, what's going on?" "Well, like, you know that girl you're seeing?" I'm not seeing anyone. What do you mean?" And then she ended up saying the girl's name, and that's when I realized, oh, wait, what about her? "Well, like, Bubba, you do understand she nonstop talks about you and it's getting super annoying. Like me and the group are just like, so like seriously, either date her or just get her off our backs already. At this moment, I didn't really know what to say, so I got in my car and started laughing because like, what else am I supposed to do in that situation? And at that moment, I ended up heading home and driving back. But as I was driving home, I ended up getting spam text messages from not only the girl that was obsessed with me, but her friends, and not only that, also my friends that were my IRLs at the time. I remember I got super annoyed and I ended up basically like turning my phone on do not disturb. And when I was inside my house, I decided to basically take a nap. I remember like half an hour goes by as I'm like laying in bed sleeping, and then boom, that's when it happened. My mom ends up storming into my room saying, Bubba, there's a girl out the front door waiting for you. She says she needs you and she says you're her boyfriend. Wait, what? And at that moment, I went upstairs and I saw it was literally the girl that was obsessed with me. I ended up walking up to her saying, what are you doing here? Why are you at my house? Well, I don't know. You weren't answering your phone, so I decided to come in and check on you. So you looked where I was located and decided to show up just because I didn't text you back? At this moment, she got really annoyed with my tone of voice and she told me, okay, well, not in front of your mom. Let's go downstairs and talk. So me and her, we started talking in my bedroom, and as we were speaking to each other, out of nowhere, I'm not even gonna lie to you, this girl just got really close to me and she started confessing her love to me as if like it was Romeo and Juliet. And I am not even joking. We actually ended up doing the Devil's Tango. And boy, was that the worst decision ever. Because I remember afterwards when we were done doing the Devil's Tango, we ended up laying down beside each other and she told me, Bubba, you know I dream about you like all the time, right? Like you live in my head rent free. Wait, what? And then I realized that when she went on her phone, she had a photo of me as her wallpaper. At this moment, I knew 100% this girl was just majorly obsessed and I had to shut it down. So I remember I ended up basically like telling her like how we can't see each other anymore and how like my parents don't allow me dating. You know, the basic typical answer that, you know, you want to give when you're trying to get out of a basic relationship. And this girl started screaming. She started yelling in my room to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, my parents got involved and had to escort her out of the house. I always found it weird how she was really obsessed with me, but at the same time, as I started to grow older, I started to realize that girls getting obsessed is actually very common. It's just every girl shows it a different way. And also, even though she was a 10 out of 10, she was obsessed. So I guess that makes her like what, a 3 out of 10? Tell me what you guys think, but honestly, would you guys date an obsessed girl? Because if not, then fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. This TikToker was obsessed with me to the point where she sent me her cherries. This story does get insane, so like and subscribe or you will never find a girlfriend. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba and welcome back to an embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place 2 years ago. 2 years ago, as you guys may know, we ended up blowing up on TikTok. We have over 2 million followers on there, and I gotta say, TikTok was one of the most insane things ever. Because once you're labeled as a TikToker, people start treating you differently. And I gotta say, I try to keep work as professional as possible, even though all I ever talk about is the Devil's Tango. But one thing I will say is that TikTokers, they don't care. Generally, I am now like gonna tell you guys the truth. TikTokers don't care if you're being professional or not. As long as you're posting a 1-minute video, you're cool enough. So I remember me being labeled as a TikToker. One thing I'd always do is just scroll through DMs and stuff and see like, you know, what other creators I can reach out to and communicate with. Because when you become a creator, networking is like a major key to growing your account and business and just learning more about what it means to be a creator. But I remember one time when I posted on TikTok, I ended up getting a DM from this girl. Now this girl, she had a very popular TikTok account and she was known for thirst trapping. So obviously she liked my content because all I ever talked about was doing the Devil's Tango. And her being a thirst trapper, well, you know, I'm not gonna lie, she thought we had a lot in common when in reality we actually didn't. And I remember when she reached out to me, I tried to keep it as professional as possible. But then I remember when she DM'd me saying, oh, like, I was just wondering, like, are all the stories like real and stuff? I ended up telling her yes, and you know how like it is real and everything. And she was very impressed to the point where she told me, oh, like, okay, well, like, you should like add me on Snap. Okay, yeah, I can add you on Snap. Now at this time, my Snapchat wasn't public. I didn't really like add other creators and stuff because that was like my personal thing for me and my IRLs. But out of nowhere, I remember this girl decides to add me and I added her back, and me and her, we started talking. We started talking over Snapchat and she asked me the same question again where she goes, yo, Bubba, I have a question. So I know I asked this before, but be real with me. Are the stories like real? Yes, the stories are real. I don't know why I have to tell you so many times. They're all real stories. Wait, so you actually have done the Devil's Tango that many times? Yeah, I had a pretty eventful childhood, I guess. And when I told her this, I'm not gonna lie, things went from professional to freaky. Because I remember right after I say that, she ends up sending me a message where she goes, well, I mean, that must mean you have a massive eggplant. I remember when I saw this, I remember thinking this is so unprofessional and there is no way I should be communicating with this chick because this chick had a way bigger following than me and she was way more famous than me. So me interacting with this girl was probably not going to be a good idea. So what I decided to do was basically kind of like not talk to her as much and kind of ignore her. And I remember one time when I was streaming and actually live on Twitch, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing that I got a Snapchat message from her. It was a message of her watching my stream and she sent me a photo of her watching me live on Twitch. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. She's watching me. And then afterwards, she ends up sending me another photo right after when she saw that I was checking my phone on stream and sent me a photo of her cherries. This TikToker with over like millions of followers sent me a photo of her cherries when I was live streaming. This honestly blew my mind. And I remember instantly when I saw that, I slammed my phone on my desk and everyone on Twitch saw what I was doing. And I remember I was just kind of freaking out, trying to play it off, pretend nothing was happening. But obviously, I won't lie to you. I was bricked. I was. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, I never do on this channel, but I ended up getting bricked. And this honestly led to me, well, not thinking straight. Because I remember I ended up ending stream a bit early that day. And I remember I ended up laying on my bed, basically wanting to take a nap because I usually get super tired after streams. And I remember I ended up getting a Snapchat message from this girl once again. She ended up saying like how I did a good job on stream and stuff, acting all professional. But then she sends me another photo of her cherries. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Why not? I remember me and her, we ended up basically doing the things over the phone. I'm not going to say what, but basically the devil's tango over the phone through Snapchat, which by the way, you should not do. It is a very unsafe platform to do that, and be safe with what you guys do. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do this. Me and her, we ended up doing that, and one thing led to another. This girl became absolutely obsessed with me to the point where I actually started freaking out, because I remember after that whole thing, I decided that maybe it would be best if I don't communicate with this girl as much, because obviously I want to be professional. I want to be, you know, known to be not a weirdo on the internet. So obviously I ended up basically telling her like, yo, like we should not do this again. We should be professional. And she ended up saying, Bubba, we're TikTokers. We don't need to be professional. I ended up not saying anything after that and basically started ignoring her. And me, the more I ignored her, the more she would find ways to try to interact with me. Like, for example, when I would stream on Twitch, she would basically spam my DMs and spam my Discord account and basically try to like get in touch with me. And for example, if I wasn't talking to her on there, she would basically try to like go through my TikTok comments and basically try to get people to add me to message her. It got to the point where it was so bad and people started noticing that me and this girl had like some sort of interaction, but no one in my audience understood what, nor in her audience. I remember it got to the point where I just full on blocked her on everything. I blocked her on every platform I could think of to make sure that I don't have to interact with this girl anymore. But obviously, once you're obsessed, you're obsessed. And this girl was obsessed to the point where I remember I ended up getting a phone call one time randomly. And remember, I never gave this girl my number, but I remember I ended up getting a phone call, and when I answered it, I heard it was her, and I started freaking out. I'm like, wait, how'd you get my number? Oh, like your manager gave it to me. Wait, why did my manager give you my number? Oh, because like he wants us to like collab. It'll be so fun. Like, you gotta stop ignoring me, Baba. Seriously. If you start ignoring me and stuff, I'm going to expose you. At this point, when she said exposed, I'm not gonna lie. When a person with a big following says anything like that, it's the scariest thing you could get as a creator. So I remember I ended up telling her, yo, like chill out. Like we can talk about this. And me and her from then, we ended up started talking more and more just so I felt safe. I literally only talked to this girl just to feel safe. And I remember it got to the point where I ended up actually telling one of my friends about this. Now this guy I ended up telling, he's one of my IRLs and he is no way in any way connected to the internet. And he told me it would be smart if I ended up telling her manager about what's going on. So that's what I did. I ended up telling her manager basically the whole story. I got in contact with him and I told him everything. And her manager didn't believe me at first until I sent screenshots and stuff. And then this is where the story gets insane, because I remember once I showed her manager everything and basically tattletaled on this TikToker, right away, this obsessed TikToker ends up calling me and being upset, yelling at me, screaming at me. And she ends up going on Twitter and basically making a long twit longer about complaining how I was trying to riz her up and being unprofessional when clearly she was the one being unprofessional. Obviously, when I saw this on Twitter, and this is advice to anyone that gets drama on Twitter, just don't interact with it. There is no need to interact with it. Just don't even bother with it. And that's what I did. I ignored it, and one thing led to another. It all ended up going away in a span of 2 months until this TikToker came back with something insane. But obviously, that's a story for a different time. Like and subscribe. And like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.